Welcome to EchoCast and welcome Mr. Joe Pine. Now, we throw around the word pioneer a lot, but Joe is the very definition of it. 25 years ago now, introducing the worlds of both business and education to the experience economy, an idea introduced way back in 1998-ish through a Harvard Business Review article, which then became a best-selling book right here, published in 15 languages, named one of the 100 best business books of all time, and most importantly, spawned an entirely new philosophy, practice, and really industry of creating meaningful experiences to generate customer value and loyalty. Now he continues to develop new ideas and applications within the experience economy framework, delving into the digital world. And for the record, Joe's probably too humble to admit this, but Joe was actually talking about a multiverse of digital experiences way back in 2011, long before metaverse even became a thing. And Joe is doing a lot of teaching and speaking around the world for companies, schools, very impressive groups like the World Economic Forum, TED Talks, MIT Design Lab, Harvard, and more, including in that more, for Echo 360. For those that, if Joe's name sounds familiar, you may have caught him earlier this summer. Joe keynoted Echo 360's recent Echo Experience 22 Global Virtual Conference, and believe me, it was a real honor to have him inspire our community with his ideas and applications. The list of Joe's accomplishments and contributions goes on much longer than an entire episode of EchoCast. So I'm going to shut up here and welcome our guest and friend, Mr. Joe Pine. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Jeff. Thank you very much. I was about ready to cut you off myself.
I know. Let's go. Wow, it's very easy to go on and on. But hey, for those unfamiliar, if anybody could be unfamiliar with the experience economy, maybe before we get into some of the specifics of it, just give us a quick little elevator speech, and then really, if you can remember back, all those many years, what was the impetus for it? So maybe just a little bit what it is, and then kind of where it sort of emerged from.
Sure. Well, the basic idea, as you say, the progression of economic value is the core framework in our book, The Experience Economy, which basically says that we've gone from an agrarian economy based off commodities, through an industrial economy based off goods, through a service economy, and now today in the 21st century, we're in an experience economy where experiences have become the predominant economic offering. Experiences are what consumers and as well as business people want today over goods and services. And the key notion there is to understand is that experiences are a distinct economic offering, as distinct from services as services are from goods. It's basically use goods as props and services as the stage to engage each and every individual in an inherently personal way, and thereby create a memory, which is the hallmark of the experience. So that's the shift that's going on. And I discovered it actually way back when in the early 1990s, when based off of my first book, Mass Customization, which is about efficiently serving customers uniquely. How do you give everybody exactly what they want, but do it at a price you're willing to pay? And I often said that customization automatically turns a good into a service. If you look at the classic distinctions, goods are standardized, services are customized. They're done just for a particular person. Goods are inventoried after production, but services are delivered on demand when the customer says this is what they want. And goods are tangible and services intangible. Well, part and parcel of mass customization is the intangible service of helping customers figure out what it is that they want. So, you go up to a Coca-Cola Freestyle machine, for example, to get your personal cup of Coke, and they don't produce it until you say what you want on demand. Everything it's not in finished goods inventory, just sitting there in all the different compartments in there, and then they deliver exactly what you want, delivering a service to you. So long ago, I had talked about service examples of mass customization. One astute gentleman said, well, what happens when you turn mass customization, or when you mass customize a service? And I shot back that mass customization automatically turns a service into an experience. I went, whoa, that sounds good. Hold on. Literally, Jeff, it just came out of my mouth. I had never thought about it. It came out of my mouth. But once it did, I knew I had something good. And I sat down, I spent a lot of time realizing that it's true, that if you design a service that's so appropriate for a particular person, exactly the service that they need at this moment in time, you can't help but make them go, wow, and turn into a memorable event. That meant that experiences would be a distinct economic offering. That meant we'd have an economy based off of experiences. And that was the basis of the whole book and all the ideas on it in the last 20 years.
That's so cool. So born from kind of a service economy, and now, 25 plus years later, infused with technology, and with, at Echo 360, we're all about learning technologies. And then, as I mentioned in your intro, you addressed technology specifically in your book, Infinite Possibility, where you did introduce the notion of a multiverse. Yeah. What role has technology now? So even though the experience economy was maybe born from service, it is so tightly linked now with technology. Has technology been, in your mind, has technology been an accelerant of the experience economy, or an enabler, or like how do you look at it now? Because back in the mid 90s, I mean, I still joke with my kids, my first job, I shared a computer with my cube mate. I mean, we literally had it on a Lazy Susan and you had to spin it around, you know what I mean? So how do you see technology with the experience economy now?
Well, so interestingly, there are three dynamics in this progression of economic value, and technology, particularly digital technology, affects all three of them. So it's actually it's an inhibitor, it's an enhancer, it's everything, depending on how you use it, how you think about it, what you do with it. So the first thing I'll say is that I first started talking about the experience guide before there even was an internet. But what we quickly learned is that the internet is the greatest force of commoditization, ever invented, right? Because the frictionless marketplace means that customers can instantly compare prices from one vendor to another and tends to push them down to the lowest possible price. So one of the factors of the progression of economic value is that in the experience economy, goods and services have become commoditized, right? Where they're treated like a commodity, where people want to buy based off price and convenience, not based off of the value you get, because they figure it's all about the same. And again, digital technology helps commoditize offerings. Secondly, anything you can digitize, you can customize, right? So customization, again, key to going up the progression of economic value, is the antidote to commoditization. Commoditization is like the law of gravity. It drags you down year after year. If you do nothing else, you will be a commodity. But customization lifts you up. You can't help but be differentiated if you customize down to this individual, right? So it's automatic differentiation. So it helps commoditize, it helps customize. And then the other third dynamic is in the progression of economic value is this ladder up, that it's the economic functions that you extract commodities, you manufacture goods or make goods, you deliver services, and you stage experiences. And digital technology allows us today to stage experiences that have never before been possible. And that's where the multiverse model and the infinite possibility comes into play, because it talks in particular about all the different ways that you can use digital technology to fuse the real and the virtual. And thanks to digital technology, we can reach customers everywhere, we can customize to them, and then we can engage them more, including with inspired learning experiences. We can engage them more with what we have to offer, through the technology that simply wasn't possible before, even before you get to virtual reality and augmented reality and alternate reality and all those things.
Yeah. How, you mentioned inspired learning experiences, which is what we talk a lot about here at Echo, and you do a great job with the experience economy and applying it to a variety of sectors, not, business, of course, but outside of business, into education, civic, you travel all over the world, you talk to so many different groups. How have you seen over the years the experience economy land, if you will, across the different segments? I would imagine, within the business sector, that was a fairly, maybe a quick uptake, economic value. Okay, great. I'm in. Just tell me how to make more money, get more customers. But how has it translated? How have you seen it translate across different markets?
There's an amazing translation. I often say that not every business has to embrace the experience economy, but pretty much every business would benefit by doing so. And one of the places where any company can is through creating what I call marketing experiences. or is experiences that do the job of marketing by generating demand. So if you're a commodity producer or you're a goods manufacturer, right? Even if you don't want to stage experiences directly, right? You still want to make your stuff and extract your stuff. Then you can create marketing experiences that generate demand. That's why we have, for example, the World of Coca-Cola in Atlanta, the Heineken experience in Amsterdam, the Guinness Storehouse in Dublin. All of those are these flagship marketing experiences. Look at Lego with an entire portfolio of scores of different marketing experiences, from their Legoland theme parks around the world to Lego Discovery Centers, through to the movies that generate demand, the TV show that's out there on Lego Building Masters, and all these other websites and virtual worlds that they've created. They all exist. They're all wonderful experiences to be able to expose people to the product and then get them to buy it. Because one of the basic principles of the experience economy is that if you get your customers to experience your product before they buy it, then the chances they will buy it go up. And that includes in B2B. One of my favorite examples being the Case Tomahawk Experience Center in the Northwoods of Wisconsin, where Case Construction brings potential customers up to literally play with the equipment. Right? They have a giant sandbox, it's like, with the rodeos and contests about who can move the most amount of dirt in the shortest amount of time. And they did a study and found that if a normal customer goes up to a dealer, they have perhaps a 20% chance of getting the business. But they bring them up to Tomahawk Experience Area, it goes up to 80%. Right, from 20% to 80%, because the experience is the marketing. And so even in B2B, even in basically commodities and goods industries, any company can benefit. But one of the other things to understand is that the simplest and easiest way and the cheapest way to turn, like, for example, any service into an experience is understand that work is theater. That whenever your workers are in front of customers, they're on stage. And so if you get them to engage their customers, then you can create a better experience and create a preference for your particular brand, like the Geek Squad does with installing and repairing computers, but they do it with wonderful costuming, with wonderful acting that they do, that it just makes all the difference in where you get your computers repaired.
Yeah. You mentioned the Heineken experience, and it reminds me of one of our daughters when she was studying abroad, sending pictures home of her study abroad. And most of them came from the Heineken experience. But which calls to mind another question around just the global sort of absorption of the experience economy. As I mentioned, you traveled all over the world. You've seen this in action. Have you seen certain regions of the world adopt this faster, adopt it more kind of deeply, or is it really a universal kind of language now?
Well, that's a good question. It is a universal language in the sense that every culture has experiences, have natural experiences, whether it's going to a sauna in Finland or a tea ceremony in Japan, whatever it might be, a baseball game in the US, right? You got these things that you do by dint of who you are as a people. And tourism is the number one industry in the world, not just experience industry of any kind in the world. It employs 10% of the world's population. So you're going to see it all over the world. There are particular places, I think the US still leads, particularly in experience design, but Scandinavia is an interesting place where that sort of comes naturally to them. I'll put it that way. They may not be as sort of over the top as we are. Think about Las Vegas, but they do a wonderful job. Iceland has more natural, wondrous experiences per square mile than I think any place else in the world. Denmark has more master's degrees in the experience economy than any place that I know of. I'm going to Stockholm in September, and elsewhere in Scandinavia, including Nordic countries of Finland, has embraced the experience economy very much. I think I'm also, I'm more famous in the Netherlands than I am anywhere in the world, because I've been there so many times and talking about experiences and authenticity and so forth. So every place embraces it, but they may interpret it differently. They may do it differently. There's something about their own unique culture about how they want to do it.
That's well. And when you mention you're big in the Netherlands, it reminds me of David Hasselhoff. He was huge in Germany.
Germany, is it?
He killed in Germany. Yep. Last question before we let you go here. A lot of guys who would have sort of, come upon this kind of success and adoption, and really, really redefining a lot of for businesses and all these different sectors. A lot of people would have basically ridden this wave and just kind of off the fumes basically. But you don't do that. You continue to evolve the model, evolve the framework. And recently, you've been talking a lot about transformation. And I'd love you just to talk a little bit about how transformation has kind of become sort of it's not really it's not like a Maslow's hierarchy, but it really has become sort of an even higher sort of evolution of the economy. And so talk about a little bit about transformation and even how that came to be, because that there must have been a little bit of an origin story of just that next level of experience in a transformation.
In fact, it's always been there from the beginning. It's in chapter 9 of the experience economy from the very beginning, because one of the things I always do myself is I'm always asking what's next, right? I'm always looking, like you said, to expand it. It's not going to rest on my laurels and say, this is it. There's always got to be something next, or usually there is. And so from the very beginning, I said, well, can experiences be commoditized? Yeah. And even back then in the 90s, you could see it happening with themed restaurants, right? Where it's like, you go once, you don't have to go again. And other places. So can experiences be customized, right? Absolutely. You can customize the experience. My favorite example there being Carnival's Ocean Medallion, which has an entire experience platform that allows them to customize your moment by moment experience on their Princess cruise ships. So given that, well, what would customization turn an experience into? And I said, well, if you customize an experience, if you create the right experience now that's exactly right for a particular person or company, then you can't help but turn to what we often call a life transforming experience, a transformation. So transformation is a distinct economic offering. It's the fifth and final level in this progression of economic value. We're using experiences now as a raw material to help people to change, to help them guide in achieving their aspirations. So fitness centers are in the transformation business. Healthcare is in the transformation business. Coaches of all stripes, management consultants, B2B transformation. Nobody hires them unless they want a different business. They want a better business in some way. And education, of course, can be not just an experience, but a life transforming one. A transformative experience that gets people to embrace new skills, new capabilities, new ways of thinking, new frameworks for viewing the world. And so it too should really view itself as being fundamentally in the transformation business. But as we continue to think about it, we've explored experiences so much, we're starting to explore transformations more. And that's what led to our January, February article in the Harvard Business Review called The New You Business. And that's the way to think about it, is that you are helping people become a new you. You can't do it for them. They have to do it themselves, but you can guide them and help them understand what their aspirations are, help them achieve that, and then become a new you.
That's fantastic. Well, the book is called The Experience Economy. The website I did mention, strategichorizons.com. That's Joe's website for any kind of resources that folks want to look into for workshops and certification that you mentioned. It's fantastic work. Now, normally, so I want to thank you, Joe, for being here. And normally here on EchoCast, we would now be transitioning to a demonstration of some kind of technology that would be illustrative of the conversation that we just had. But we've got a special treat for all of you viewers here of EchoCast. So I mentioned Joe gave the keynote at Echo Experience 22. And so that keynote is available online at echo360.com. And so you can see that in full on echo360.com. And if you stay tuned right now, you're going to see some highlights from that keynote. So we've kind of mashed up some of it's all a highlight. It's basically 40 minutes of highlight. But we've got even the highest of the highlights that's gonna come next. And then if you would like to see Joe's full keynote, you can go to echo360.com, and where you can also find more episodes of EchoCast and tons of other resources to help you unlock your own inspired learning experiences. So thanks again, Joe. It was great to see you.
Thank you, Jeff. Enjoyed it.
It's a pleasure to be with you today to talk about inspired learning in today's experience economy. The most precious resource on the planet is the time of individual human beings. And the number one competitor for their attention is the smartphone. In fact, I think I see one or two of you using your smartphone right now. And also recognize that while money should never be the purpose of any organization, money is the measure of how well you fulfill that purpose. And time, attention, and money are so crucial today because of the shift that's going on in the fundamental fabric of the economy. Or we've gone from an agrarian economy based off commodities, through an industrial economy based off goods, through a service economy, and today we're in an experience economy. An economy where experiences have become the predominant economic offering, that experiences are what consumers, increasingly business people and employees and so forth, all desire. Right? We desire experiences over goods and services. And what's happened is that in the experience economy, goods and services become commoditized. I mean, they're treated like a commodity where people don't care who makes them, they care about the brand or features, they're pretty much all the same anyway. They come to care about three things and three things only: price, price, and price. Right? That's when goods and services have been commoditized. And that means it's time to shift up this progression of economic value to staging experiences, to staging inspired learning experiences for each one of your individual customers. You can see this progression of economic value in any industry, but one we're all familiar with is the coffee industry. And you think about coffee, coffee at its core is what? It's beans. It's beans you grow in the ground, you extract them out of the ground, you sell them on the open marketplace. And if you look at the future price of coffee and convert it from a per pound to a per cup basis, you know how much coffee costs per cup when you treat it as a commodity? 2 or 3 cents. That's it. That's what a cup of coffee is worth. But if you take those beans and you grind them, you roast them, you package them, you put them on a grocery store shelf, now you can get 5, 10, 15 cents per cup of coffee. If you then use those beans to be able to brew them for a customer in a vending machine, a kiosk, a corner diner, a 7-Eleven somewhere, then you get 50 cents, $1, $1.50, maybe $2 per cup of coffee. But surround the brewing of those beans with the ambiance and theater of a Starbucks, and now how much you paying? $3, $4, $5 for a cup of coffee with only 2 or 3 cents worth of beans. That's the progression of economic value. That is what is going on in every industry. Eventbrite did a study a few years ago and talked about like who's really fueling the experience economy. And they came up with that millennials, right? Millennials are fueling the experience economy. Why? Well, they're the first generation to really grow up in the experience economy. Their entire life has been spent in experiences. And what they said is that living a happy, meaningful life is about creating, sharing, and exploring memories earned through experiences that span the spectrum of life's opportunities. But recognize it's not only millennials, it's not only Gen Xers. Every generation desires experiences. Every generation would rather have experiences over buying things. Every generation recognizes that when we do buy experiences, it makes us happier, as research shows, than buying things do. And so we need to understand this shift to the experience economy, and perhaps it's very hard to talk about it without talking about these folks. All right, think about Walt Disney. Walt Disney created the world's first theme park on July 13th, 1955. And you go to Disneyland or Disney World, and first of all, you pay an admission fee, right? That's a signal that this is a place worth experiencing. You pay an admission fee, but that doesn't mean you don't buy goods and services as well. You're buying Mickey Mouse hats, Mickey Mouse watches as memorabilia for the experience. You're buying food services, parking services, photographic services. But why do people go? It's for that shared family experience that they have. An experience where that with memories that last not just for days and weeks, but for months and for years afterwards. Now, I think about one of the things that's happened since we started talking and writing about the experience economy has been the rise of the CX movement, right? Customer experience. And when most people talk about customer experience, they're not talking about what I'm talking about, right? It's not the same thing at all. You know, all these companies have their offices of CX and they're measuring CX, but what they really mean is that, well, let's make our interactions with our customers nice and easy and convenient. And nice and easy and convenient are all well and good, but they're service characteristics, not experience characteristics. If you want to stage an engaging experience, something for which many companies are hiring the position of chief experience officers or CXOs, if you want to stage an engaging experience, you got to recognize that nice is nice, but rarely does it rise to the level of memorability. If you want to stage a true distinctive experience, you have to create that memory inside of people. You have to reach inside of them, engage them to be able to create that memory. And we think about making things easy. Well, often that means we routinize things for our employees to make it easy for them to serve our customers. Right? But that gets in the way of being personal. And experiences are inherently personal. In fact, no two people can have the same experience, even if you're in the same place at the same time, right? Because you're different people, different background, different prior experiences. You've been primed in different ways, right? Experiences actually happen inside of us as a reaction to the events that are staged in front of us. So again, reaching inside of people, engaging them personally, and creating that memory. And finally, convenience is the antithesis of what I am talking about. Convenience means let's get in and out as quickly as possible, let's spend as little time with customers as possible. When with experiences, what people value is the time they spend with you. That's what they're actually buying from you. Zappos is sort of famous. The late CEO, Tony Hsieh, once said that our philosophy is delivering happiness to customers and employees. Right? And what they do at Zappos is they don't measure average handling time. Right? In their contact center, like everybody else, measures average handling time, which is a measure of how little time we spend with customers. And then they say, throw it away. We want you to engage customers. We want you to have a conversation with them. We want you to take however much time you need, because they recognize it's not a one-period model, it's a multi-period model. And if they engage people, if they create what they call a personal emotional connection with them, then their chances they come back go up. The chances that they have a memory about it go up. The chances they tell other people about it go up. So you need to create that emotional connection with them. In fact, every day at Zappos contact centers, they celebrate the person who got to spend the most time with a customer that day. Right? Think about it. They celebrate the one who got to spend the most time because they recognize the value that is there of creating that experience for them. The record, 10 hours and 46 minutes. Right? Imagine that. Now, notice what Tony Hsieh says here too, is that it's not just about customers, it's about employees as well. You need to engage employees. You need to give your employees the wherewithal to be able to create a great experience for your customers. So you need to create employee experiences as well. So the question is, how can you turn your education services into learning experiences? I want you to think about that. I want to give you some principles and frameworks to think about how you can go about doing that too. And one of them is to hit the sweet spot of the experience. What do I mean by the sweet spot of the experience? Well, you know, a sweet spot when if you play golf or tennis, you hit exactly in the center of the club or in the racket, you get exactly the result that you want. That's the sweet spot. And the sweet spot of experience is in the middle of this 2x2 framework. We'll recognize that experiences can be more or less passive or more or less active. The experiences you have can be one where you absorb the experience into you, or one where you immerse yourself into the experience. It's easy to see that when I talk about these 4 different realms of experience. One of which is entertainment. Entertainment, passive absorption, where you're passively taking in the sights and sounds that are presented to you, whether you're watching TV, going to a concert, a play, a movie, whatever it might be. Right? The entertainment industry is a huge sector of the experience economy, but it's passive absorption experiences. But now when you go from passive to active, what happens is you can turn it from entertainment to education. When I become actively involved in absorbing the information that you're presenting to me, that's when I can learn things as a result. And then the experience realm of the third kind is when you have active immersion. Active immersion, where I'm going from one place to another, where I'm basically escaped into that, right? That's what escapist experiences are. Entertainment industry, watching TV and so forth, escapism is really about tourists, where I'm going from where I am today, going to another place, and I'm doing all of these activities there. If I watch golf on TV, it's an entertainment experience. If I go play golf in the real world, well, then that is an escapist experience. And finally, the final realm of experience, where you have passive immersion, where you're passively immersed in a place that engages you, and that's an aesthetic experience. Right? Aesthetic with an E, not an AE, that's the philosophical study of beauty, but aesthetic with an E. It's an architectural term about the built environment, how we create a place where people want to hang out and just be. And so you have 4 different realms of experiences, and the most Robust experiences, the most compelling and engaging experiences, are those that hit the sweet spot in the middle, that have aspects of all four realms. And that's what you want to aim for in any experience. Another key principle to think about is to mass customize your offerings, right? Mass customize. What do I mean by that? Well, basically, it's where you efficiently serve customers uniquely. You give everybody exactly what they want, but do it at low prices. Do it with high volume. Do it with efficient operations. That's in fact how I originally discovered this progression of economic value, where from my first book, which was called Mass Customization, where I recognized that if you customize a good, you automatically turn it into a service. Great example of that is Coca-Cola with its freestyle machines. You may have seen these in many restaurants where you go up with your cup and you put it in the machine, and then you determine, well, what type of Coke do I want? Based off of a base of regular Coke, of Diet Coke, of Coke Zero. Then you can mix others into it. You can put in Fanta or a root beer. You can add in Sprite if you want. You can mix caffeine with non-caffeine. You can mix regular with diet. You can even then add in flavors like lemon, cherry, vanilla, or my favorite, lime. And then you press the button, and once you've designed that, it fills exactly the concoction that you want that's designed for you, right? Turning what was a physical good into the service of making that good at point of sale right there for you. In the same way, if we customize a service, if we design a service that's so appropriate for a particular person, exactly the service that they need at this moment in time, then they can't help but go, wow, and turn it into a memorable event, turn it into an experience. So what happens when you customize an experience? What happens when you design an experience that is exactly what this customer needs at this moment in time? Well, then you can't help but turn to what we often call a life-transforming experience. An experience that changes us in some way, and that I call a transformation. A transformation is the fifth and final economic offering in this progression of economic value. We're using experiences as the raw material to guide people to change, to help them achieve their aspirations. Right? That's the key with transformation. Now you think about it, education is naturally in the transformation business. One business school that recognizes the London Business School, where the former dean John Quelch once told Fast Company magazine that we're not in the education business, we're in the transformation business. We expect everyone who participates at the London Business School, or whether it's for 3 days or for 2 years, to be transformed by the experience. That is a different mindset. That is a different economic offering. That is a distinct economic offering where we help people become who they want to become. With transformations, recognize that the customer is the product. Think about that for a second. The customer, the student, is the product. It doesn't matter anything that we do, anything that we teach, unless the students get out of it what they're looking for and it helps them change their lives, change their work, change their business in some way, right? Inputs don't matter, only outcomes. Talked before about the distinction between services and experiences as time well saved and time well spent. Well, with transformations, what you're doing is you're offering time well invested. Time well invested, that you're using those experiences and people are taking those experiences, investing them in themselves that's going to pay out compound interest and dividends now and into the future. So you need to invest in your students and get them to have these experiences that help them achieve their particular aspirations. So the question is, what business are you really in? Is it the services business? Is it the experience businesses? Are you truly in the transformation business? And if so, then understand this. Again, it's about achieving aspirations. It's about knowing where your customers are today and what they aspire to become, right? From to. Right, so wherever they are today and they have their aspirations, then how do you design the set of experiences that's going to close that gap? Generally, it's not one life-transforming experience. Generally, it's not one activity. It's a set of things that works them towards achieving their aspiration. That's the outcome that they want. That's the outcome you need to guide them to, right, as a transformation. So what should you individually do differently? Right? I don't want this just to be an edutainment presentation. I don't want it just where I'm entertaining you and then giving you frameworks and educate you. I want you to change as a result of this as well. And I want you to think about what you should be doing differently now that you understand the shift that we are going on and these principles about how you can create inspired learning experiences that in the end transform. Because this is what is going on in the world. And you can stay in the illusory safety of past practices and keep on doing the same things you've always been doing, well then mark my words, you will be commoditized. Or you can shift up this progression of economic value to staging experiences and guiding transformations for each one of your individual customers, your individual students, and then you'll be economically rewarded.